Welcome to our lovely future humans who love to do spiritual and personal growth for those lovely 3 reasons we were chit-chatting about. In our 3-minute short, you'll get the succinct version, so you'll find the link below, and or you can look at our lovely YouTube page and go find it there. And if you're tuning in from other podcast platforms, YouTube is where you want to go. You will not find any link below except for a link of our lovely becoming a paid subscriber for those who want to add to their mindful mindset inner growth practices. So spiritual life and personal growth mindset, they are enjoyed by those who have a wellness toolbox. And so within your toolbox, you add the inner growth mindset toolkit, and it does involve spiritual practices and or spiritual focus is what I should say. And I also am considered a woo-woo pseudoscience lady because those who don't do spiritual stuff. But for the mystics and spiritual community, we all know together that we don't need to be afraid of demons, monsters, energy vampires, lucifers, or dark auras, because all of that and those wordings are for our spiritual bypassers, brothers and sisters of the 4D density collective and basically adaptive child part people who stay within a story because they have yet to get their body into a connectedness. So number one reason why we self-empowered, enlightened people, mystic, spiritual, and or mindful, love to pursue spiritual and or personal growth and or both is because we like reality checks. So we're grounded in reality. We know that all of our cherishable beliefs are pieces of information, which is also why we know that words don't teach us. Life doesn't teach us either. We first need to become bodies that are in the ventral energy, anchored in it consistently. So when you're a higher self and you're self-led, you own the sense of self. That's why number two, you do personal and spiritual growth for real. So when we are in the vicinity of hypocrites, the spiritual bypassers, we still get to master our number 3 reason. We get to master our emotions. So our emotional regulation skills are our lovely opportunity. You enjoy mindful mindset because you enjoy to savor your own emotional plane. So you're resilient from a securely attached, non-traumatized, embodied brain integrated perspective. Okay, and so with your wholeness, you have your personality patterns, and you have that which also Dr. Daniel Siegel would say is your temperament, and your attachment category is now secure, or you never left it. And with that, you can play in, I integrate his wheel of awareness, his hand model, the PDP framework, the IPNB framework, and then the Enneagram, all of it when it comes to Maria. And then with the one-to-one mentorship, I do, depends on what we're doing together, but then we also have our content, so self-led content, and that which is paid is for people who integrate into their day-to-day practices. So you're always adding to your toolbox because it's really a consistency to live as yourself. And emotional regulation skills is the part where we have the most fun. Why? Well, again, we are good with reality checks. So what does that mean? It means that we have a heart that lives in recognizing itself in another, and that we don't use petty behavior. So when I meet those who I call teenagers, I remember my teenage friends, and I don't enjoy any kind of mediocrity. Mediocre behavior is black and white thinking. It's self-righteous assholishness behavior, and it's not a Lucifer. This is where I was 20 when I found out, yep, hey God, no Lucifer. Just a bunch of cowards, and then you keep moving forward. So when you meet cowards today, I'm 45, I will say with a hand on my heart, wow, I'm so happy that we have Peter Levine, Bezel van der Kolk, Stephen Porges, Dr. Daniel Siegel, Dr. Daniel Fox, Janina Fisher. Stephen Porges is still researching this. So Pat Ogden, all of the ones who will help anybody who wants to get their embodied brain and their humanity healed and therefore do the right thing, which is get themselves to become first and foremost, at the very bare minimum, a functional adult. For the mystics, that means becoming a true mystic, because otherwise to me they're a 4D mystic, which, not that they're not a true one. Actually, it was told to me that the split would be consistently here. I personally don't believe in fixed outcomes because of being able to be in the prefrontal cortex. So while living the moment is amazing, when you live it in a way of being empowered, you don't forget about the past. and you don't forget to plan the future. And you can do this easily because of, again, the reality check of the prefrontal cortex, personal spiritual growth. So I'm in a body, I'm always positive because my ventral energy is on. I use good stress. So you're creating resilience in the restorative embodiment, okay? Okay, so why self-empowered people enjoy spiritual and personal growth is because being empowered means that I don't get petty. So the ones who don't do true mystic, spiritual, and or personal growth, they will not only say, we're not here to be equanimous, so they don't want to be calm and centered, which means they don't want to uphold a leadership type posture, at least not of our 5D, fifth density, fifth dimension, Christ consciousness, oneness consciousness. Restorative embodiment, okay, so when you are integrated in the lovely embodied brain, your habitual brain default mode network is down regulated, and so left and right work together. And now we have a person who knows that words doesn't teach you anything, and life doesn't teach you anything unless you are a person who can hear from both ears with an open heart. In my case, I have God's discerning equanimous love, his voice. I have the Holy Spirit, her lovely open-hearted love, and Jesus' other voice over here, forgive, turn the other cheek, don't cast a stone, and then all the archangels, angels, masters, you name it. Buddha and I have a thing because I make fun of him and he makes fun of me, and it's really cute. And future, I'm a future human, so I'm going to be integrating a little bit of this and that. Sit down, get relaxed. We also have a new moon coming up. Okay, so when you meet those who are the storytellers of 3D, 4D, we will thank them for keeping our ancestors' frequency alive and those stories of monsters. And basically they didn't move into the updated data points of where no Lucifer, no monster, when people have nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. Patrick McNamara explains Decentralizing and the Self. Is a really great book. I haven't read it yet, but I watched a couple of videos on it, and his explanation to a T, very accurate. Okay, so when you meet ignorant and or spiritual bypassers who don't want to believe sciences, you leave it alone, because their ears are not hearing. As Stephen Porges would point out, biologically rude people, their ears are flopped down, but also they're already in a safety behavior mode. So petty people, when someone brings to me a rigid stance, I will understand that as their lack of desire to take personal growth and spiritual growth seriously, because they just decided not to emotionally regulate to notice how I can create more softness, which means they're not going to allow their embodiment to be at ease, to move into good stress. Okay, so again, the reasons why self-empowered enlightening people and the enlightenment soul age group people will enjoy doing mindfulness mindset practices consistently is because we do them already. And then we'll do it when we're encountering others. They give us the opportunity to notice, oh, their nervous system is closed-hearted, they're not opening up, and they have a story from their mouth, and because they're in a self-righteous energy, they're gonna like just go on a roll, you know, in a certain way. There's a very specific way rumination works in the brain, and then there's a very specific way it happens when they're not doing the healthy exchange. So venting, if you watch The Well, it has a lovely myth busting for 3 not very effective emotional something skills, and one of them is venting. I stopped venting when I was in my mid-20s. I always forget the age because it all becomes blurry, but the people that I asked to help me didn't help me. They're like, but you're human, you can't stop venting. I'm like, it's because I'm human. But you're not Jesus or Buddha. I didn't copy Buddha. I am definitely going to walk like Jesus taught me. I'm not going to say copy him, but if I have to say, I'll copy him. I'll forgive my brothers and sisters. I'll turn the other cheek because they don't know, and I will know, thanks to Stephen Porges, that they don't know that they're actually being biologically rude. Okay, so when an individual chooses to stay harsh and rigid with themselves, it's going to be also with external. And so you slow down that which is your progress, because you will be in a very feisty, modulated embodiment. But again, that's a person's journey. So bodies in connection are the people who will resonate with inspiring human potential. All of it, the paid, the free content, and that's because you're self-led. And you also understand the value of discerning equanimous love, whether you believe in God, Akash, Source, Anima Mundi or not. Science shows dark matter, dark energy, please don't implode, and how your embodied brain works. So your embodied brain, when it's a habitual brain with the default mode network down-regulated, you notice and contain sensations, images, the affects, which are the emotions that arise, the charges, the behaviors, and the meanings. Thank you, Peter Levine, for the acronyms too. And as Bezel van der Kolk was pointing out in an interview, he says you can't understand what the difference between a regulated self and a dysregulated self feels like, because they are automatic behaviors, not chosen. So for the people who can use Patrick Tian or Terry Real, that's why they would go, because they would notice that they don't know how to handle their mood swings, that they get harsh, they get unnecessarily into a very bad mood. I'm trying to think of the words. And when it comes to the ones who think that there's demons that we need to be worrying about, or Mother Earth, or whatever it is that they continue to bring forth as if we're getting punished. Okay, that's really, I don't even know where to begin or end. Except for storytellers, it's like the flat earthers. And really what I'm going to bring in is cognitive dissonance and structural dissociation. So when people don't take note that their structural dissociation plays out because their maladaptive patterns play out, inner outer critic, drinking, drugging, fucking, but also like actual, in music you'll find it, in movies. So I'm not impressed by anything anymore when it comes to entertainment, because the majority of what I see is completely unhealed people. So their suffering is all in it. And this is the part of where my body doesn't suffer. So one, God always chimes in saying, okay, remember, don't judge your brothers and sisters of human suffering. A waste of your fucking time, Maria. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's because that's the active wisdom that he shares. And then that's why Buddha makes fun of me, because like, you're spotting it, ha ha ha, because they're not healing it. And I'm like, ha ha, let me point at you. And Jesus just stares like that. Remember, forgive, Maria. Okay, so I have consistent communication with all of them. And what I'm going to tell you all, humanly speaking, is that I can see that they dishonor their humanity. And then I am a grumpy little face who's thinking, how am I going to, be respectful of this? And here's where the wisdom of God comes in, but the wisdom also of our lovely Sadhguru, as he shared in one of the blogs that he posted about karma, and how it is consistently every day when you wake up, it's dissolving itself. Life will have karma dissolves itself. So when you look at karma from the perspective of likes and dislikes, like an adaptive child part, so charge, a lot of different words I can bring in. Don't put any notes down because this is not all organized. But anytime you have an automatic behavior, but you're not noticing it. So here's where, when Bezel is saying that people can't understand the difference, he's talking about people who have yet to take ownership of their embodied brain. And then he goes on to explain, he says, those parts of the brain have a life of their own. You don't control them. It is like if you have ever tried to talk your friend, he's given an example, out of marrying someone that they will, basically, it won't be a good match. And I've had the experience. I told you all about this. And he says it never works. And so when you are a self-empowered, enlightened person, whether with the science equation of restorative embodiment alone, or with your 5D mystic spiritual life, you'll know which one you are, or both. So pretty much you're a person who understands common sense is what I'm going to bring to you. But it's also called healthy self-worth, securely attached and untraumatized, self-led, healthy, empathic boundaries. I was a teenager, I already knew these things. I learned them as I walked a walk and talked a talk. And Jesus was the one who supported me with Holy Spirit and God to continue saying, I will be kind independently from the cowards that I meet, because why would I ever treat you with petty behavior, with bullshit, personal attacks, lazy discussing, character attacks, what insults? So when you have people who are no impulse control, they take things personally, or they try to make it personal or whatever, and they use words that mean nothing to a grown human being. So when anyone gets short and grumpy, I just remember I used to get grumpy too. That's a person who doesn't want to handle their own emotional plane. You don't make people handle their emotional regulation skills, especially if they're choosing to justify their self-righteous, irritated, rigid, not only the way they're thinking something, because certainty with anger is what comes up, or anger brings up certainty and your brain is dumbed down. This is why Bezel is saying this is automatic, and that's what I 100%, yeah. If you got a person who's not a functional adult, they're going to be a Cusco attitude. Like my facade friend, who when I had to tell him, look, you got an Achilles heel. This is not what you want to be doing right now. It's not your health. You need time to heal. You just got out of a relationship, and he completely did the opposite, lied to me, made up some excuse of why he lied, pointed a finger, blamed someone else. For 5 years, I didn't speak to him. And when he was in the shithole, because again, words don't teach you, life tries to teach you. But life is where it's, whether you call it God, Source, Akash, Anima Mundi, or consciousness, because the sciences won't, the ones who are very much of, it only happens, okay? So there are some people who will say things happen in life, but we know otherwise. Those of us who are very much well aware that you don't have to give it the word God if you don't want to, but you will be brought forth. So karma, you will be brought forth to dissolve it, because it's a charge. And so even if you don't want to use spiritual words for it, I'll bring in codependent people. As Patrick Tiahan points out, we got martyr superior, and then we got the victims blamers, and they will usually come together, and you'll notice they have a short emotional threshold for each other. So they're going to continuously poke at each other, because they will, until you learn how to dissolve the charge and become equanimous. So the calm centeredness is your ventral vagal state. I'm bringing the human elements, the spiritual and spirituality elements, which is why you will want to consistently consider, what am I bringing into the table, first with the charge, if there's a charge, and then with the thoughts. And with inner growth, not outer critic or inner critic. Okay, so my friend never took ownership of that which he brought to his own life. I don't care, it's his life, not mine. When we became friends again, it's because I already had a hunch, one, as a mystic, knowing what time it was of our timeline, and I then also knew he had no friends, and that it would have been wrong, because God taught me how to forgive, turn the other cheek, and blessed are those who believe without seeing, through Jesus. And my mother taught me also manners. But my heart also knows the right thing to do, because you don't leave someone out in the cold because they did something that you don't like. That's petty behavior. That's the most pettiest of any behavior at all. And when someone wants to justify it, I can't say anything except for everybody chooses. Because the only thing that would make me say no to helping a person to get up from the floor is I would have to be physically certain that you represent some kind of physical threat to me, and my gut would tell me, because my gut is a healthy gut. And even then, I don't know, because would I leave someone hanging? No. Humanly speaking, I would feel awful. And that's just not right. And so here's where you don't have to pray, but I definitely pray personally. And so I got taught manners, and I got taught, and there's no monsters. Now, the part about having common sense, of course, we have a lot of people out there who need help and who represent physical threat to people. But what I was trying to point out is that unless I am certain that I will be in physical danger, I will help a person. It doesn't matter what they will have done. I won't leave them out to dry, because, well, it's not about an image. It feels pretty shitty. That's it. Humanly speaking, if you have an open heart and you're a person who's with the capacity to understand, would you want someone to leave you hanging when you're in the most shittiest of moments in your life? Now, that you can accept that can happen, that's a whole different story. So when people, instead of understanding that when Jesus says forgive, it's not just some people, but if they still have their monster stories in their brains and they call people demons, energy vampires, that there's entities attached to them, and then they decide who the in group and who the out group, who's the monster group and who's the good group. It's pretty straightforward how the equation works, which is why they're mediocre pseudo-intellectuals, spiritual bypassers, and they're idiots. Is the only people who fall for in and out group, which is a 14-month-old version of yourself, is the same individual, and individuals who don't know how to have a conscious and notice what you like and don't like, and then notice, but that's not really nice of me. If I would leave somebody that I don't like out to rot in hell, So someone could say, well, what about the dude, Maria, that you're not friends with? I mean, dude's enough to be saluted. I consistently communicated nothing except for I'm not going to befriend you. There's a stranger. And guess who are the only people who will continue to bring equation after equation after equation of why you could have done it differently, you would have done it differently. These are the same individuals who, instead of looking themselves in the mirror, are unwilling to accept the wellness industry, positive vibes only, which is a ventral energy, which is a healthy self-worth human being who has no attachment wounds or flares come up because of being self-empowered, enlightened, and not having any shit go down with anyone who's different or the world and this injustice. Yeah, of course, I see plenty of it. Guess what I know? Air. Still breathing it. Where's my water? Here's my water. I got food. I got a roof. What do you want? You want me to whine about something right now? I still have 2 hands, 2 feet, and a mouth to talk. I'm still pretty much ready to go and rumble and roll with the punches. And that's how it works when you have a habitual brain, your default mode network, that doesn't feel helpless. As Bessel van der Kolk points out, default mode network is where the habitual brain, people will have, forget how he words it. Let me see if I can find my notes. Because it was a really good interview that he was having. And his book is going to come out, Come to Your Senses, where you can learn to pay attention to yourself, feel what you feel, and give yourself the things that you need, and also find out what those things are. So for some of us, we're lucky like that. We have the capacity to use our habitual brain. Right here, he says, DMN, I feel helpless, that's the traumatized brain. When you're securely attached, non-traumatized people, that's because you have the right mode, it's yours, and that's where the containing, but not only containing, the mastery. So we love the opportunity to emotionally self-regulate, to consistently emotionally up our regulation skills. Why not? It's my emotion. So my anger, my sadness, my fear, mine. Mine. And there's your whole 3-year-old heart, though, because so with my friend, when we became friends again, I asked one thing of him alone. I said, all I ever asked you is to be yourself. It was a very specific conversation. And then I told him stuff. I said, I'm only telling you because you judge a book by its cover. So the spiritual bypassers, those who pretend to do personal and spiritual growth, and I say pretend because they haven't noticed that their body still suffers. So when your body is still helpless and suffering, you feel weak. You feel tired, you feel low on energy. There's a bunch of things. And you wake up with shit in your brain. And then you point a finger. And that's why Dr. Amy Pigan, she's awesome. She's out there for anybody who needs her to create a body that is securely attached and then move into resiliency. Here, it's resiliency with your restorative embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating life. So you're a person who can use your nervous system. Otherwise, you will not resonate because you don't like ventral energy all the time. The ones who don't like to be chirpy, and it's because there's stuff that's still being worked with. But let me put that to the side and read a couple more of the quotes that I was going to read to you before I forget. And then I also want to read to you some of those cards that I got for the new moon. And I think I lost the one that I was looking at before. But Karma Sadhguru is about shifting responsibility from heaven to yourself. This is how you become the very maker of your own destiny. This is where remembering that it's not that straightforward. And so you can't tell yourself that you can be nicer to yourself. That won't be helpful. It's only once you can connect to the inner hurt that it gets better. Ron Siegel. So it's once you actually connect to the parts of you, which is why shadow work, there's a bunch of 4D mystics, they do their shadow work on a screen and they don't look good. And structural dissociation, when it happens for real and you're walking someone through it to try and get them to stand down, go home, do something better, and then you explain to them what you also know and you're trying to help them understand, and they say, no, but I was conscious. This is why when Bessel van der Kolk says you don't understand the difference between regulated self and dysregulated. and automatic behaviors. And structural dissociation is you're playing out your 0 to 8-year-old, and here's where when Pat Ogden explains the non-metabolized, and when a person goes and plays it on out, and then if you don't heal, you're just going to be the teenage version of yourself. So like my facade friend, who basically, no matter how I talk to him that day, 3 years down the line, I end up finding out that he doesn't believe in God, he doesn't believe in mysticism, he doesn't believe in anything, and I'm full blown in not only 3 twin flames at this point, downloading, channeling, an Akashic record reader, Reiki master, my world, tarot, coffee cup readings, everything. So I know the split, I know all about the lovely timeline, and it's not going to go downhill, it's only going to go uphill. The only ones who won't see it are the same ones who I already knew they wouldn't, and I'm sad for them because they don't have to go through life like that, but they don't want to go and get their bodies connected. They don't want to do the work with Pat Ogden, with someone, anyone. That's a good therapist, because there's some that are not. And when the somatic therapist in my courses, I've had a couple of certificate educational courses, they're like, oh, they'll be fine because the body is healing itself. And that's where, as the Sadhguru story, let me see if I can find it for you all, because it was a really good story, but it matches that which is the restored embodied you. Your body is smarter than the left brain. The left brain makes up bullshit stories, but it's not bullshit because your embodied brain protects you. And it protects you from the home that wasn't safe for some people, which is why if a person does one thing in this lifetime that will be reflective of truly embarking on the spiritual growth journey, at the very bare minimum, is that they will connect to their inner child, become their inner adult, and we will have the honor of meeting that human being in their true whole self. And it's not because their shadow parts or protectors are bad. No, that's the whole point. They befriend all of those parts, and then we get to meet all of it, which is what is like goosebumps. When I think of people who are welcoming all of them, I'm going to start crying because that's them doing their, that's exactly where self-led and sovereignty, Jesus, when I think of him, I have a picture and he's touching his heart. Okay, so we all connect from the heart. And that's because, like the scientists will say, we are the mental health. When I say scientists, I mean mental health, neuroscience, neurobiology. So the kingdom of God is within every one of us. And that's because we are all human, our human makeup, but you're an embodied brain. And so here's Sadhguru's quote: every moment of your life, whatever you do or don't do, your karma is dissolving. The very life process is dissolution of karma. You have a certain amount of allotted karma, and then he goes on to talk about it, but it'll work itself out. However, I have seen that it's not true for all people. As Gabor Mate points out, if you don't get loved in a way of allowing all your basic human emotions to be expressed, in a way of knowing that you don't have to work one day of life for love, and that no matter what, you're accepted and welcomed from here, it's not here. Yeah, that is where you're going to have people who are going to continue calling to themselves the very charge that they will not notice. So if I wake up and have to have coffee and you take it away and it makes me miserable, that's where you're holding on to something in a way of creating karma, if you will, and not taking the karma to make it your responsibility. And so again, please don't get fixated on words, because there's always different ways that I personally bring in. And then when you see Sadhguru, which is why some people don't know how to follow this type of conversation, because those are the people who want it all to always just stay in one little box. But for those of us who use two sides and are cool with just conceptualizing, we have a fun time. And we're not going to be picky about it. And also is where words don't teach you about life or you, because they're secondary. Your somatic narrative teaches you about you, like Pat Ogden points out. And that's exactly why when you learn to read your body's somatic narrative and track its language, that's when you're going to know your story. But that's not by yourself, because the first 3 years are implicit memory. And if there was a flaw in emotions, this is a big, big, important journey. So it's when you are grounded in your body. The whole goal of trauma treatment is to help people feel safe in their bodies, Ruth Lanius. And Ruth Lanus and Bethany Brand have talked about when they get clients going in, because I have a bunch of, again, different courses, how people will ask, we don't have to get integrated, do we? Because they're afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of, but it is a process, and it isn't a snap and done. And when you hear the process, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for one new little neural receptor or whatever to be built or to be created. Then it takes another certain amount of time for myelin to lay down. And then it takes another certain amount of time for you to get settled in. And here's where in these classrooms, there are people, well, wait, I want a quicker, I want a shortcut. Don't you hear math? And no, I want a shortcut. Okay, so does anyone know what life is made of? Let's see, this is where I'm going to find out if you are a person who knows what life is. Trauma is not an event. Trauma is a response. Okay, so when you are a person who has a habitual brain that doesn't feel helpless, you are owning wholeness, you're owning personality patterns, you're owning temperament, you're owning the 9th chakra is still expanding. Tomorrow's our new moon, so I'm continuing. Again, there's going to be a bit more of a conversation here going on. Okay, so for me, I come with God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. I have faith. And so let me spell that one out right now, because I don't come where I don't believe in anything. I won't ever know that, but I can tell you I've met human beings who are sciences, and they're just as amazingly hopeful and with expanding on life and whatnot than a person with faith. So I'm going to say there's no competition. If you have a person who's whole, who owns their life, who owns their body, who understands emotions and continues to enjoy the regulation of all of them, not thinking of it or feeling them as, oh, I'm so vulnerable. Okay, so your habitual brain, it feels helpless if you are a person who doesn't understand that self-regulation is that which you achieve or that you always have when you're self-led. You'll achieve it when you're owning the sense of self. Core, narrative, solo, relational. Your child parts are all whole. No part of you is a shame part. There's no part of you that needs to be noble or not noble. You're going to be flawed and crappy like anybody else, because not crappy, but the point is someone can see you as crappy. But you won't behave like Cusco. So if someone justifies their short-temperedness and their attitude and their inconsistencies, so one day I'm good, next day I'm bad, one day you're awesome, then you're a piece of shit. When I get people who behave this way, I'm used to it personally, and today I have technical verbiage for it, and I completely leave it alone. It ain't my business. And if the person doesn't notice themselves, there's nothing you're going to do. As, again, Bezel van der Kolk points out, you can't talk sense to a person. And it's true. You will not. Like my facade friend. So 3 years down the line, he's talking about what he doesn't believe in. I'm furious, because this is my friend. He's like a brother, but this is why I don't yell at any of the hypocrites out there anymore, thanks to him. And God just keeps me continuing to master my lovely physical mastery is what I'm getting to do right now. So when he chimes in to say, don't judge my brothers and sisters of human suffering, a fucking waste of my time. Buddha, when he makes fun of me and I make fun of him. These are all, you could put in the human elements to where Maria knows how to keep herself in a space of check. Not because I have to, as it feels good. No one's selfless, right? It feels good to be on the end of, I know what I'm doing. It's not about perfection, but you better bet people will think of it that way. Does it feel good in a little childish way? If I wanted to bring her up, I could bring her up. When you know what ego feels like and self, you know exactly what it is to be a human. But the point is, I'm not trying to do it to be good or not good. But I can get into a little spiteful energy if I want to. That's, humanly speaking, part of that which is, though, a low frequency of insecurity, which I don't have, which is why would I go petty on me? That would be humiliating for myself, because that would be shameful. So there's a very easy way for you to be able to discern, stay equanimous and loving, because why not? The best version of yourself. Is it petty or is it awesome? And is it awesome because you know what it means to be right? To be a person who can stand in the face of someone who's being completely ridiculous for no other reason except for they don't know how to emotion regulate, and then they don't know how to notice. So you have a self, I have a self. So, it's really straightforward to me when I meet people who don't know how to move personality from being a prison of chaos and rigidity to a playground of connection and possibility. When people want to slow themselves down from becoming more emotionally mature and flexible, it's too bad for them. But That's just because I think you have 24 hours. So every day that you spend in a low frequency, you tire your body out. You just repeated the same habit again. So you've done nothing different than yesterday, which is why you didn't create a new neuroplastic modality. So you didn't do something with your mindset. You just allowed yourself to decide to stay in a stagnating modality that doesn't bring anything positive. It actually allows you to stay in a stalemate, of, if you will. So do not look for the finish line with life. The journey itself is the destination. Sadhguru quotes, "The most precious gift is life itself. Will you realize this now or only on your deathbed? May your decisions be based upon what truly matters and works, not upon your likes and dislikes." I know that therapy works for every person who wants to become their true self. And then the mindfulness practices works for people who want to be actual self-empowered, enlightened ones. And that the ones who want a story, they're going to keep doing their storytelling and keep wanting to have a monster to blame and someone to blame, and justice world, pointing a finger, creating battlefields because they're motivated by something different. The doomsdayer, the hostile, the doer, the ghost, the please-appeaser, those are all childhood trauma personality types. They all could use Patrick Chan so they could stop making their body work 3 times as hard, because they still refuse to look themselves in the mirror and notice, wow, I still think that I need to actually do something in order to be loved. And that means I still feel defective here, which means I'm still performing in a circus act, which means your body is again continuing to be tired because it is resilient, but with survival mode, which is not the healthy version of resiliency. Thank you, Dr. Amy Apigan, for being out there. So she's out there for anybody who wants to take their body seriously, and so are a lot more, but she's really good at explaining how all of this stuff works when the survival mode is kicking in. Never think in terms of who is doing better or worse than you. The only question is whether you are doing your best. Thank you, Sadhguru. So when you know that integration of the brain, as Dr. Daniel Siegel points out, made visible is kindness and compassion, that it is energizing because your embodiment is consistently, again, navigating ventral energy. So when you're putting into practice the mindful mindset with the inner growth, spiritual and personal growth, you will not only be experiencing dharma, the karma, if any of charges come up, you will dissolve them, like for me, dissolving the fact that I still notice spiritual bypassers, hypocrites, those who suffer and want to tell me they know shit, but then you see them suffering with their rigidity and just continuing to be Cuscos, like my facade friend. Then they stagnate, became boring. They all become boring at some point because they know everything, but their frequency is low. And I have the capacity to feel, and though, wait a minute, I'm going to honor them by being a person who can challenge myself. Why? Because I want to be the best version, because I know what I'm capable of as a human, which is to feel good. I feel good, because of my ventral energy. And also, why would I do my body disservice? She didn't do anything wrong to me, nor did they. And why do I need to calibrate to a lower frequency? They're the ones who don't know how to put their ventral energy, and they don't want it. Yeah, I'm thinking I can do the best I can. So the influence is because we're all nervous systems. Differentiating, as Dr. Daniel Siegel points out, which is one of the suggestions he gave me, is that Maria's nervous system was fine 2 seconds ago, and I don't have to calibrate to the other. I'm perceiving it, I'll recalibrate to mine, and then I will have a Mui sphere, which is where I'm navigating at Maria's frequency. The other can do whatever they want. However, my mammalian heritage is the same as yours, which is why the ones who will be around healthy self-worth, empowered human beings are only the ones who will be able to want to be around that, which is a equanimous, discerning, loving human being, whether they believe God is that or not, Akash Source or Anima Mundi. And if stuff comes up, they're not going to be projecting it. But even if they do, the emotionally immature people like my facade friend, they won't be actually getting put to the side or anything like that. It's like Manny, Diego, and Ice Age. We all just hang around and have a good time, because we can be deeply involved with everything but not be identified with it anymore. That is when you are enlightening, and that is where you're dissolving all of that, which would be a charge. And so once that awareness is there, once you are desireless in that sense, there is no karma bondage for the person. Those who do dharma and not karma, again, it's in the sense of we are able to use integrated brain to process our thoughts and our emotions and to bring forth the best version of ourselves in the equation, because we want to be the people who are actually No, because why would you not be, again, yourself? Authentically, transparently in your ventral energy. Okay, so it's an opportunity. Every one of our brothers and sisters gives us the opportunity for us to notice our automatic behaviors if we get into any charges, to dissolve them, because that's what you can do as you're engaging, because you differentiate, and then to continue building a bond from the heart. Now, when we do have certain types of ruptures and splinters, there are those so-called recalibrations, but that's where a secure attachment person, so an individual who's empowered, they won't be changing the dynamic in a way of I love you less, I love you more. It recalibrates based on what we have in common of interests, or basically what we don't have in common of interests. And in fact, grown-ups don't make it into like, oh my God, I'm so upset, as you grow up. So obviously this is where I went through the stages, because I had an adolescent brain too. It's once you're, by the time you're 25, your adolescent brain is finally, the prefrontal cortex, no, the frontal lobes are completely developed, if I remember correctly. And this is, we're talking a body that's in connection, owning the sense of self. Okay, so you're self-led, the higher self, just so we're clear, because those are the people that from that 25 or 27 are able to easily become aware of sensations, images, those which are affects, emotions, behaviors, meanings, however the order is, and then not endorse the anger, the fear, the sadness in a way of exaggeration. So when you have a securely attached human being who's non-traumatized, they will be able to express the emotion. Also, what happened in the same time, we're recalibrating, and this is why we're not going to be drama kings, drama queens, stress queens, or anyone who is in, by the way, 3D, 4D, creating a story, continuing with it, and then saying that you're not meant to be equanimous or discerning or loving in this way of there's no evil, Knievel, medieval, of Lucifers and monsters. Stop insulting our brothers and sisters, because they all can heal if they go to therapy. They might not, but they can heal. And so while we do have shit going down, yes, there's laws that protect us. Physical safety is our number one priority. Grounded in reality, mystic, spiritual, mindful, living, loving, 5D collective are grounded in reality while bringing in also the stories. So like our timelines, our new moon, and then I'm going to let you go. So here's where our lovely third eye, as it activates in our root chakra. And I know some people, when they get upside down cards, they think it's blocked, but that's not what this one's talking about. I read intuitively, and it's talking about as above, so below, and that's for our 5D collective. And it's also not as above, so below. Someone else was saying how it's a different wording, but what I'm trying to say is that our root chakra, we're rooting in that which is the spiritual wisdom, the mindful wisdom, so your self-agency, for those of you who again are not necessarily into having experiences that are of the mystic spiritual. And if you're somebody who has an oversoul, so twin flames, soulmates, whatever it is your story is, you will have had an expansion on that front that will have brought you to be able to find your next sweet spot. And so you see the potential, and you bring all that is unconscious to light, and that is your brain, your heart, your gut, your body, the alignment from a higher self-led person who can allow their truth to now be spoken in a way of walking the earth. And so your innocence, even while we have an unsafe planet, because we're still unsafe, we walk with our ventral energy, and that's why you give the frequency of enlightenment consciousness. The high frequency is an embodied brain of a person who's emotionally regulating. That's why the skills are something you enjoy doing. Also, it feels really great to use good stress with all of the emotions. So the panic attacks for me were the worst ones. Fear is really hard. I mean, sadness, I've never had an issue with it, and anger, again, not. And I don't have an issue with fear either. It keeps me safe. It's just the more torturous ones to experience. So none of it matters. Zooming out, the ninth chakra, the inner darkness, that human secondary consciousness. So it's not that it doesn't matter. It's that we're able to, again, be able to deeply be involved while also being not identified. So while my heart will always want all my brothers and sisters to become that which is their higher potential, they might not. So we remember that we have a plan. We can have a fated life or destiny life. So you can own your prefrontal and have that ownership of your destiny, be responsible for you, have your habitual brain, not be I'm helpless, get to become flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable. That's Dr. Daniel Siegel's acronym. So that's when you're working with personality patterns, and that's with wholeness. So you're able to, again, not get grumpy and mean and awful and bunch more of things when you're all upset, or you're a work in progress. We're always a work in progress. I'm still working with my stuff, and you're not alone. So isolation, physical connection, community, you're never alone. Whether you come from the part of spiritual or mindful, if you're a person who's choosing to be yourself and you're choosing society, you know that your heart lives in recognizing itself in another. You can join, obviously, our community, subscribe here, paid, free, all of it on Spotify, YouTube. It's a joy to have all of those who are healing not only their trauma, but bringing forth their inner child, and then knowing that all of our brothers and sisters can get here too in their own time. But that, yes, humanity, they all can awaken the best version of themselves. The ones who won't, they have a group and they can hang out with each other. And while they hang out with each other, we know that they will be continuing to live the ghosts of the past, and they think humans are cursed and that we are yucky, and they will continue using the ancient stories. And in their time, they will, again, have, like the flat earthers, a good time. So we don't have to do anything about it. As long as they're following laws, we have groups. We'll be back with more. In the meantime, have a good one. Thanks for stopping by.